Hello, everyone. A very warm welcome to the Spirits Business Hub. We are super excited to be back here for year two at Provine, and I hope you've all had a great morning so far. I'm very happy to be introducing Rakshay Dhariwal, who is joining us here today. He is the founder of Maya Pistola Agavepura, and I'm sure you all know how much agave spirits has grown in popularity. And I think Maya Pistola is a really interesting brand, bringing a new take on agave spirits. So I'm going to hand you over to Rakshay to talk you through the brand. And we are going to have time for some questions at the end. So if there's anything you would like to ask him while we are here, please do. Rakshay, over to you.
Thank you so much. I'm here to talk to you guys about agave from around the world. What is it? Blasphemy? No. It's not blasphemy. Agave does grow all across the world. And for the most part, of course, Mexico really inculcated the whole making of an alcohol spirit from the agave plant. But that being said, agave has been growing across the world, and at least in India for over 200 years, and in a lot of countries across the world for centuries and centuries. So, here to give you guys a little talk about those countries, about what kind of agave is being produced. And feel free to jump in at any point in time. I want to keep this very interactive. And so giving you guys a little bit of a global snapshot on agave. So historically, agave, got a little bit of a bad reputation maybe in the late 80s, early 90s, when everyone would begin consuming it in shots. And those were probably mixtos. And mixto is a 100%, is a 51% agave as compared to a 100% agave spirit. And mixtos can use, anything from corn, any other form of sugar apart from agave. And they were consumed in bars after you've had copious amounts of other liquid, and then you shoot this, and then what you remember is what you've shot at the end of the night. And so hence, a lot of mixtos got a little bit of a bad reputation for, and for giving you a bit of a hangover the next day. But I think that perception is changing a lot today. And tequila, mezcal, agave spirits the perception is changing from it being a shooter to it being a spirit that you should sip. Aged expressions are doing extremely well, and premium agave spirits are doing extremely well. The global agave spirit market is experiencing a strong growth, whereas a lot of the other categories of liquor are slipping. Agave is actually growing. So it's expanding from 14.6 billion in 2024 to an estimated 27.5 billion in 10 years later at a CAGR of 6.5, which is pretty healthy in the alcobev space. The unfortunate situation is the largest market is the United States, and over there, Gen Z, millennials, they're not drinking as much anymore. Since the legalization of marijuana, a lot of people are choosing to smoke instead of drink. And that has caused the entire industry to come down. And today, when you look at, Mexico, the largest supplier to the United States, there's a lot of liquid being unsold. And that's, causing a little bit of a problem. The fast-growing markets across the world are Africa and Asia Pacific. You're seeing double-digit growth and things because also these two regions have been consuming very little amounts of agave spirits for all these years. So that's why now you're seeing a big growth in them. Agave is traditionally thought of as a heritage Mexican spirit, but today a lot of New World agave spirits are emerging from across the world. Why does non-Mexican agave even exist? So as I said, there's a huge surge in demand, primarily probably due to cocktail culture and from the fact that people are now consuming it as a sipping drink and not, that mixto that you're shooting at a bar at the end of the night. This entire change to premiumization probably happened about 10 years ago, and this goes back to the talk that we had last on how premiumization was the trend 10 years ago. Well, in a lot of parts of the world, that is happening today, and even still. Maybe not in Europe, but in Africa, in Asia Pacific, there's a huge premiumization trend. The Gulf before this entire war was seeing a lot of that. Super premium and high-end agave spirits have grown up to 1,000% over the past decade. I remember just mezcal sales in right around the pandemic. There was a huge jump of 500 to 600%. There were severe shortages in Mexico, and this has been ever since the huge upward trend from 2016 because there were poor weather conditions, and also the demand across, specifically in the United States, jumped up so much. And then there was another shortage that happened right around the time of the pandemic, 2020. Then the need for climate resilient crops as production of many spirits, including tequila, beer, and whiskey, were all impacted because of the weather conditions in the past decade. And then also producers today don't want to be regulated by a body like the CRT. They want to do things a little bit different. The whole craft aspect only comes out with innovation. And people want to innovate in different ways, play with the spirit in different ways. And hence you've got, aging like a rosa. And some people are calling it a rosado. So there's a lot of fun, interesting stuff going on in the tequila market today, tequila, mezcal, and agave spirit market today. The main agave regions where agave is grown is, of course, you've got Mexico, which is the largest one. You've got a lot of the Southern American states, Texas, California, Arizona, all of them, you see agave growing. And there might be different species of agave. Not always is it Blue Weber. Blue Weber is what's used in the production of tequila. However, there are so many different types of agave, over 100 different species. And in a lot of these places, there's a generic term that's been coined, agave americana. And this is an overall broader species. And inside this, there's so many different subspecies that differ from region to region. So you've got that growing in Australia, South Africa, Ecuador, all over the world. And of course, in India. But if you see, there are two very distinctive belts in which agave is produced, and those two are highlighted on the screen. Let's start with the United States, the big consumer. The United States became a huge hub, and in fact, the United States now drinks more tequila than they do vodka, than they do bourbon. And that is just crazy to think about. There are local distilleries in Texas, California, Colorado, Missouri that are all producing agave from locally, that are locally grown in the United States itself. There are some brands called Blasphemous, Agave, Amerigave, and the innovation also extends to Sotol, which is not made from the agave plant, but a plant very close to or related to the agave plant. Most of the brands are priced in that $35 to $80 sweet spot. Most of them around $45 to $60. Of course, you'll have some unaged, some blancos starting at 35, and when you get into añejos, extra añejos, they can also go, surpass 100. The US now is over 50 craft distilleries experimenting with agave spirits, and they're seeing a huge growth of 15 to 20%. The country also is, still the largest drinker of agave spirits. And as I said, they've overtaken vodka and bourbon. Australia's climate is actually perfect for growing Blue Weber. It's, such a huge barren desert, and very few urban centers that land is actually extremely cheap. So you've got a lot of, outside of Mexico, it's probably got the largest amount of Blue Weber growing. And in Queensland, which is a state in Australia, where the mineral-rich soils and coastal influences give a very fresh, citrusy, herbaceous spirit, the profile of the spirit. There are about 5 to 6 distillers producing agave spirits in Australia. Act of Treason is probably the most notable one. Agave Australis, Bunker Distillery, Black Snake are some of the brands that are being produced there. Craft brands, produce unaged, barrel-rested, smoky expressions, and even variants distilled with kangaroo meat like a Pechuga Mezcal. Can't call it Mezcal, but, uses the smoky notes when you cook the agave under earth. So as one of the largest agave growers globally, the market is seeing a big jump, 20% annual growth, with craft spirits in around that 40 to 80 US dollar range. Once again, similar to the United States. South Africa. South Africa has most noteworthy, is the Karoo agave, and they call it this because it comes from the Karoo region, which is cultivated agave for centuries. And the main broadline term that they call it is agave Americana, and because no one exactly, it's been naturalized in South Africa and all these other countries for so long that the type of agave species would be very difficult to exactly identify. So that's why this overall term that's agave Americana that gets used. The brands include Leonista, Sangro, La Tierra, Oraga, and El Centurion 102. Most of the producers are producing additive-free, 100% agave spirits, and you've got unaged and reposado and añejo expressions as well. The Karoo or Americana takes a long time for it to grow until it's mature. Blue Weber would take maybe 5 to 7 years, and the Karoo can sometimes take up to 20 years. So it's, the kind of spirit profile that you pull out of it is a lot more complex. There's deeper sugar development and very unique flavors that come out of this agave. There are around 3 to 5 different distilleries that are producing this, and the growth that they're experiencing is 6.6%. The expansion is definitely supported by the cocktail culture in places like Joburg and Cape Town. And, tourism is huge in South Africa. Everyone wants to see the Cape of Good Hope. When you see 3 oceans collide, it's just a beautiful sight. And, although production is at a very small scale currently, 1,200 liters per day, it's still a growing market. The pricing is again similar to the $30 to $40 for a Blanco, 40 to 70 for a little bit aged and premium craft brands, and 80 plus for limited edition small batch brands. France, this is very interesting because France was not on those two longitude lines. No, latitude lines, sorry. And France there's a famous winery, Chapoutier, that due to the climate, their grapes were not always suitable enough to use for the production of wine. So what they decided, they said, listen, the most hearty, the easiest crop to grow is agave, and with the huge, demand for agave spirits all over the world, they've started planting agave on their land, and so it'll be really interesting to see how the French species is like, and whenever they come out with their spirit, I'd love to try it and just to see, the differences in notes, in flavor profiles between France, where it is, frightfully cold, and the rest of the regions that are, around the tropics. There's another big trend of using cognac barrels to age agave spirits, and a lot of producers are experimenting with French oak. We've also at Maya Pistola, I'll get into my brand a little bit later on, but we're also experimenting with French oak, and yeah, it's great to see, also people are trying to play with blends of cognac and agave, and all this is innovation that the CRT would never allow. And that's why, there's this huge emergence of New World agave coming up across the world. The producers like Distillery de Paris and Agave, they're a little bit more expensive, 40 to 70, but some batches even over 100 euros. So it is a little bit more expensive. Obviously, labor costs and so on and so forth, they're a lot more in France than they would be in other regions. Ecuador. So Ecuador has seen a resurgence of Misque, spirit from the sap of Andean agave. The production scaling began maybe in 2011, and the spirit has moved from being, a rural drink to high-end cocktail bars. And you're getting a strong premium demand. Though the Misque is also the Andean agave is also a subspecies of this overall broad category, Agave Americana. And they've actually received a DO status 3 years ago. And that, when you get that, then you always see a good amount of money come in, and that's what starts the growth. There are about 10 commercial distillers producing 100% agave spirits there, and 15,000 plants added through reforestation. The notable producers are Casa Agave, Chavar Misque, Jambi Kiva, and Andean Spirits. The category is in an early high growth phase with about 8 to 10% CAGR in the next 10 years. The interest is rising in export markets like the US and Europe, with spirits appearing in high-end cocktail bars. The pricing is that $30 to $50 for a Blanco, 50 to 80 for some of the aged expressions, and 90 plus USD for limited high-end and extra aged expressions. Coming to India, agave spirits has been the fastest growing category in India for the last 2 years. The market experienced a 12.69% growth, and currently the market is still very small. That's why the high growth percentage. It's just a $1.68 billion. It's going to reach a $1.68 billion industry. Right now, it's still fairly small. Domestic brands like Maya Pistola Agavepura, Desmanji, and El Gunda are distilled from wild agave Americana that's been growing on the highlands of the Deccan Plateau in India. And this strain has been in India for over a century, in fact, 2 centuries. And the market just has a very limited amount of producers right now. But the rising, agave consumption is driving up demand of particularly the 100% agave spirit. Not so much of mixtos, not so much of 51% agave, but you've got, brands like Don Julio that entered in maybe around 3 years ago and that are doing extremely well. Of course, it comes with all the Diageo marketing money. That being said, there's a huge growth in the 100% agave category. The brands, most of them are positioned in the craft premium segment and are used for both cocktails and straight sipping. Our highest selling cocktail in India is a spicy margarita. And probably every single cocktail bar in India has this cocktail on their menu. And for a spicy margarita, of course, you have to use agave spirit. The pricing in India is from around $35, and then that's for blancos, jovens, 45 to 75 for reposados, añejos, and over $100 for extra añejos or ultra luxury expressions. The agave growing region. So agave actually doesn't just grow in one region of India. These are all different states in India, and agave grows amongst all these different states. You've got Haryana, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, and even this huge state here called Uttar Pradesh has soil that is adequate to be able to grow agave. So India, with the hot climate, is very well suited to grow agave. Craft spirits in India are doing extremely well. The growth percentages are through the roof. And today, all the youth and what the Gen Z want to drink are craft Indian brands. Indian agave is becoming popular because shipping costs from Mexico are very high, up to 3 to 4 times higher, than anything that's locally produced. It can go up to 10 times higher as well. Another big issue with India is the custom duties. In order for any imported brand to enter India, if you pay €1 for the brand in the home country, you have to pay €1.5 to the government to be able to bring that spirit into India. Of course, that's changing now with the new free trade agreements that we've cracked with the United Kingdom, with the EU. But from Mexico, it's still 150% import duties. That being said, imported agave spirits are, dominated by the big players. You've got Proximo with Jose Cuervo, 1800. You've got Don Julio, Patron. These are really controlling the market today. The flavor profile of the raw spirit that's made in India is spicy, peppery, and works well for the Indian palate. Craft spirits in India, as I said, going through an all-time high. They started maybe in 2017 with the emergence of gin being this fun, cool, spirit. It's extremely easy to make, and a lot of craft gin brands came up. Today, you've got whiskey brands, rum, and agave brands coming up in India. Historically, never had craft cool brands. They're all mass market, meant for a lower segment of the population. But as India is becoming a more wealthy country, you've got a whole load of young people who want to drink Indian-made craft brands. There's a certain feel-good factor that they relate to when it comes to these young brands as compared to something that's mass-produced, something their fathers or mothers used to drink. The Indian consumer also believes in the Made in India narrative. Although we're not taxed as such, the youth still very much so wants this and takes pride in the homegrown spirit revolution that's going on in India currently. Coming to Agavepura. So we actually at Maya Pistola, we coined this phrase, and we created it so that there could be a recognized category out there for 100% agave that's additive free, that's not limited to a region or type of plant. As long as it really depicts what the agave terroir is, what the flavor profiles are, without the use of additives. That's all, as long as it's 100% agave and additive free. Then people will be able to taste and understand the kind of agave being used. So we did not want to restrict a certain type of agave like Agave Americana or Blue Weber agave. We wanted it just to be 100% agave and additive free. We created this at Pistola, and we're happy for any of the brands worldwide to use this term. And as long as they're made in the right way without additives, we qualify that as Agave Pura. Why is it relevant? Agave Pura is relevant because A, it's a whole new category of agave spirits. You've got tequilas, you've got mezcals, you've got sotols, raicillas, you've got so many. And there needs to be a term for new world agaves as well. So hence Agave Pura. It's building awareness to high quality new world agaves. And it gives freedom, as it's not governed by any authority, that says, no, you have to only produce it in these certain regions, and you can only, it's wide. It lets the producers take back control of the production. With it brings a celebration of flavors. You get to taste so many different types of soil in tasting these. It really gives a lot of freedom to the producers, and they can sell that with storytelling. In the talk earlier, also, if you notice, the most important way to market a brand is by storytelling, and this gives the storytelling back in the producer's hands. And that's why New World Agave is so relevant to the industry in the years to come. What is the future of agave spirits? I think premium agave spirit growth is been characterized by the premiumization more than anything. The trend is expected to continue as consumers fundamentally changed from drinking those mixtos, shooting them at the end of the night, to sipping on a nice, fine agave spirit. Because today, what the realization is that people want to drink better, not necessarily more, they want to drink better. There's a huge feel-good factor when it comes to drinking something interesting, something unique. And drinking craft spirits accomplishes that. You don't want to give the big boys more of your money. And that's why I think a lot of the craft brands are really taking a lot of market share away from some of the big boys out there. There's an inherent focus when you're producing in small batch that you go for the quality, not the quantity. And that's why people are assimilating to the craft approach. The terroir, people want to taste something different. Everyone knows the flavor profiles of Blue Weber agave from Jalisco. Everyone knows that. But what else is there? People want to experience, something from South Africa, something from Ecuador, something from India, Australia, from France. I'm so interested to see what the French, agave spirit ends up tasting like. And all this, it really boils down to, as long as it's being made, additive free, you'll really be able to taste the terroir. Consumers also want to engage with what they're drinking. They want to drink something special crafted just for them. And a lot of the craft brands, they're able to deliver that, feeling that resonates with a lot of the drinkers. A lot of these brands are also, they've got limited production. So you want to feel that I've got one out of 200 bottles. I own one of them. And that's a huge feel-good factor for consumers out there. Coming to my brand, Pistola. Maya Pistola Agavepura is India's, or rather Asia's, first aged 100% agave spirit. It's crafted, again, using that overall Agave Americana. However, in Mexico, it's most similar to the Araucano plant, which takes about 13 to 20 years for it to grow until it's mature. In India, for us, because of the climate, it used to take around 8 years, but these days it takes around 13 years until the plant is fully mature and we can harvest it to make our agave pura out of it. We're completely additive free, distilled in a part copper pot and double distilled. Then our aging is in Virgin American white oak, ex-bourbon, and also we've experimented with ex-Cabernet Sauvignon casks from France, and all our aging is done in Goa. We're completely homegrown agave spirit, and everything from the bottles to the labels to the corks, everything is produced in India. What makes Maya Pistola Agavepura so unique? The species of agave. So a regular blue Weber agave piña would probably be around 30 to 60 kilos in size. Ours are 150 to 200 kilos. So a lot bigger, a lot more cumbersome to work with, and it takes a lot longer for it to grow until it's mature, as I explained. The terroir, so the red-black volcanic soil is rich in potassium, and the pH levels vary between 6 to 8. And the kind of rainfall we get is only 700 mm per year. The flavor, it's peppery, it's green, it's crisp, it's herbaceous, and this is all just the raw spirit. And you can taste some at the Spirits Business Bar. I'd recommend, if you want to really taste the terroir, taste the Hoven. That would give you a good indication as to what it tastes like. Our aged expressions, with the oak usage, these can get disguised very quickly. But, of course, we don't use any additives. So if those are your jam, then please try those. And the positioning, we've positioned it, we needed to get out the fact that it is, at the end of the day, an agave spirit similar to a tequila or mezcal, but we couldn't call it that. So in our bottle shape and our branding positioning, we tried to make it as, agave-esque as possible. And so far, we found a huge niche in India. And in terms of our sales, we grew at 71% last year. So a lot of growth, for us. Now, if you guys have any questions, if you want to know more, please, happy to entertain any questions anyone has.
Who invented that? Who imported it?
So great question. It actually started with the colonial exchange, where during the reign of Queen Victoria, she took agave that she found in North America and planted it wherever she found the need for it. So you'll find it a lot in her colonies. So if you see Australia, South Africa, India, all these, what do they have in common? They were all colonies of the United Kingdom during Queen Victoria's rule. In India, she actually brought it and planted it along the railroads because those were set up during her rule. And we worship the cow in India. And these trains, cows were crossing the train tracks, and the trains were knocking over the cows. And the villagers started protesting. And so to curb this unrest in the villagers, she brought the agave species and just planted it along the railroads. And, the species she brought over is, the plant that grows up to 10 feet tall, huge. It was much cheaper than building a barricade or put fencing along the railroads. So she just planted this, and in about 5-6 years, she got this big, plant, and it's just been naturalized, and it's been growing in India, across India, ever since. And similarly, I'm not sure as to why she brought it to South Africa and Australia, but would be for similar uses, probably.
woven effect, the sisal. You make ropes out of it.
Oh! So it is in India at least. It is used to make rope, used to make paper as well. But it's not as efficient as a lot of the other methods. So that's why. And also today, I know a lot of people are looking. I've got a buddy in Israel who's actually planted a lot of it, and he's thinking about using some for biofuel. So I met with him just recently, and he explained this whole biofuel idea to me. And today with the airlines, there's a big opportunity in biofuel as well. So Israel isn't part of my presentation today because they've literally just planted it. But I think in the years to come, Avi and his team in Israel will be doing some fun stuff with this stuff as well.
I have a brand-focused question. As a brand owner, especially a craft brand owner, do you pay a lot of attention to trends with flavor profiling? So if it's like, spicy is going to be a massive trend, do you produce liquids to go to that trend, or do you just keep nice and steady in terms of what you're doing and what you focus on? How important is that to you?
So I think it is extremely important to play with the trends. And we saw that also in part of the last presentation. You have to keep evolving. You have to keep giving people something new, something exciting, and what they want. And the way to sell something is by keeping with the trends. So if, there's this inherent spice culture that is developing, then give them something a little on the sweeter side, to balance out those spicy flavor profiles. It's extremely important to continually evolve with the trends. And also what I was saying about aging in French oak, as compared to almost all brands use American oak and ex-bourbon particularly. But today, experimenting with ex-cognac, ex-red wine, Cab Sauvignon. I know a lot of brands also experimenting with white wine. So you have to just keep on the innovation, and you never know what might strike. And, to be able to market something is not that difficult if you just get the timing bang on. It just goes through the roof. So I think it's important to have that your arsenal ready, so that whenever you see anything coming, you can automatically jump onto that.
Rakshay, I have a question for you, which is, not only are you a newer brand, it's a newer category as well. How do you overcome challenges, or how are you finding securing new listings, distribution? Because there must be that extra element of education must be really important. So how do you navigate kind of expanding as a newer, lesser known category?
So great question. In today's landscape, it is really challenging to be able to get new distributors, because overall you see that there's a downward spiral for for alcohol in general. But as long as you're committed to growing, the market for the distributors, you're committed to either contributing marketing money or contributing on-ground sales teams, or committed to, helping them further their business. You have to think of distributors as just your logistics partners. And as long as you're ready to throw in that bit of marketing, then I think distributors will want to take you on. And that's where I think, having a product that's unique is so important. For us, we get a lot of inquiries because of the uniqueness of our product. It is an agave from India. Oh, it's additive free. Okay, they're saying all the right things. It's craft, hand-written labels. Oh wow, exotic. The branding looks great. So there is a lot of interest that comes forth. And then, when it comes to price points, the biggest question that everyone asks is, oh, okay, you're selling it for this much. What all are you going to do to support me in my market? And it all boils down to that. So the way we look at everything is, okay, we've got a distributor, fine. They're our logistics partner, but what are we going to do in that market to stay relevant? And it might be, go after on trade, go after more of a retail play, go after more of a PR play. What it really, where you see your brand is what it boils down to.
And in our seminar this morning, we were talking a lot as well about the importance of storytelling. And I know when you and I have spoken before that there is such an interesting story behind Maya Pistola. And how much of that is part of your strategy for growth, and how do you communicate that with potential new buyers or drinkers?
So, that is also the most expensive way to market. So right now, storytelling for us has taken a little bit of a back seat, to be very honest. We're just in the process of raising a new round right now. So until that round comes in, we're holding back on some of the marketing activations that we have planned. But that is the best way to market a product. You have to hit that emotional connect with your consumers, because they don't. If you go and start telling them, oh, it's double distilled in a copper pot still, they're like, we don't care. What are we relating to? And I think Casa Amigos did this superbly. You had someone like George Clooney who said, listen, me and my buddies have started this tequila brand, blah, 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 blah. And that's the camaraderie, the friendship, the name Casa Amigos. That's what really took off for them. So I think, storytelling is the most important thing. It's also the most expensive thing. And in this game, in the Alcobev game, it's how much money are you willing to sink in for what results at the end of the day? And you have to find that fine balance where you're sinking in enough money in marketing to really propagate your sales by enough so that you're still, cash flow positive, or you're not bleeding enough, because the last thing you want is for big brands to come and consolidate and eat you alive, right? Because you're the ones that have set up this entire culture, and then, a big brand comes in and boom, Pistola will start getting produced in wherever, if and when that happens. So it's very important to just try to hold off on that for as long as you can.
And when you were building Maya Pistola as a new brand, a new category, a new style of agave, how did you plan to make sure that you not only had India as your point of difference, but made Maya Pistola distinctly not tequila or not mezcal, and made sure that it had its own, flavor profile?
So actually, when you look at Mexican culture and you look at Indian culture, they're very similar. Both very family oriented, in terms of cuisine, very, very similar. You've got burritos for us, you've got naans and rotis. They're, a lot of rice, and very, very similar cultures. And what we tried to do at Pistola was bridge the cultures. That's why our inherent storytelling with the brand it's called Maya Pistola Agavepura. Maya Pistola is the reincarnation of Maya Huel, the goddess of agave. And so in Mexican folklore, Maya Huel was in love with the god of wind. Her grandmother never approved of the union, which is something that happens a lot in Indian culture. But she never approved of the union, and Maya Huel decided to, run away with the god of wind, and then her grandmother found out. So Maya Huel went and disguised herself as an agave plant and hid under the earth. And eventually her grandmother found her and zapped her with a lightning bolt. And all that is Mexican folklore. Our take on the story is we've taken our own spin on the story, saying that the god of wind then came and picked up the remains of the leaves that Maya well was zapped too, and spread it across different regions in the world, hoping that Maya well would be reincarnated. And lo and behold, she was reincarnated in the highlands of the Deccan Plateau in India, where she takes on a new persona, Maya Pistola. And so that's our take on the story, and it bridges, Mexican folklore with our culture. Where we believe in reincarnation, so it incorporates some of that into it. It's a great love story, which the whole world loves a good love story. So that's our take on that entire story, and it's also a little bit more romantic than to stop the cows from getting hit by the trains. So yeah, that's why we came up with that story.
You spoke a bit about markets and how the US is the biggest market for tequila. For you, where are you seeing the biggest opportunities to grow Maya Pistola? If you're looking at, say, the next 3 to 5 years, where will your focus be and why?
Our focus is always very much so India. We were doing fantastically well in the United States. However, Trump imposed a 50% tariff, and I decided I'm not sending my product anymore. Lo and behold, our importer then said, listen, we might have to stop doing business together. I said, that's fine. We can always chat once again when, terms are a little bit better. Terms are better now, but I feel that we want to talk to a couple different importers as well before committing back to the US. And the US was an extremely good market. But, the world is the way the world is, and Trump is a unique individual. So, we cancel that. That being said, I think the UK has a lot of potential. Singapore is down in the dumps right now. Unfortunately, the conditions there today on trade is suffering a lot, and majority of the purchasing is done on trade. It's also such a tiny market. I think Indonesia is a great opportunity. I think Australia is a great opportunity. But for us, because we're Indian, India's our big bet. And just last year the volumes doubled in India. So it's quite encouraging.
I think so many people have their eyes on India at the moment. I think it's been there for a while, but I think the last year or two, it's really, really kind of shot up in terms of the potential that's there. And like you said, with all the free trade agreements that are coming into place as well, it just opens so many opportunities. I have one more question for you, which is, if you were to speak to a newer brand that's maybe looking to launch this year or just launched last year, what would be kind of your key advice to them in terms of growth and, getting their brand awareness out there?
So it's very easy to blow through money. Try to be as frugal as possible. Sustained growth slowly is much better than going ham and then realizing, oh my God, I've blown through all my money. So it's very easy to drop a lot of money and make big noise, but that big noise lasts not that long, right? And I've seen so many brands just go ham and then fall flat on their face. So I think slow but steady growth and sustained growth is the right way to go about it. Don't go all in, go deep. You enter a market, go deep in the market before you move on to the next market. And really focus on doing meaningful things. Don't do anything and everything. Do lesser things, but more meaningful. And I think that's the right way to go about it.
Rakshay, thank you so much for your time. It's been fascinating to hear more about the alternative agave space. So thank you so much for your knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you.